Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another long-awaited, highly anticipated week in review slash whatever the hell this is at this point. Reactionary video to the chaos in the world today. As always, my life is just ever one ever expanding, colossal mess after another, and so I'm not going to bore everyone with too many details. Sorry, I have to readjust my mic. I just cleaned my desk and all that stuff. And anyway, hope the audio levels aren't too bad. So anyway, long story short, just obviously number one thing, day job, constantly being pulled in every direction to deal with that, and then also more extended family stuff. My fiance's uncle, so it's her mom's sister's husband. Now, before I get into this, I want to iterate that her family is incredibly close, like aunts, uncles, cousins. They're very close knit. They live in a area where they're all like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes apart from each other. They all grew up together. Her parents got married young along with, her mom's sisters, so they have all been through everything together, and they've all watched their kids grow up together and all that stuff. So so when something like this happens, it's incredibly tough on everybody. So her uncle passed away on Sunday, and we got the phone call. It was pretty bad. Long story short, it was just complications. I'm not going to get into a lot of the details here, just to save time, and two, just not to pour out all the family details, all that stuff. Just he was in a bad way, unfortunately, and so that happened. And on top of that, the owner of my company, who it's been so long since I've made a video, I don't even remember the last time I made one and what update I did in my personal life to put as an excuse for all of the lack of content. But the owner of my company, who used to sit 2 desks away from me, because we're a small business, he passed away about a month ago. So that was very hard on all of us, because he gave he saved a lot of us. Some of these employees that have worked with him for over 20 years, 15, 20 years plus, and all of them came from all different types of different walks of life, and he gave all of them chances to be successful, and they all took it and ran with it. And that's including me. I'm coming up on my 5th year at this company, and this was a man that was connected to my church, which is how I got connected with this company, and I was given an incredible opportunity, which I still am thankful, and I still feel I owe a debt to. So it's been a rather depressing start to the fall and end of the year. So that aside, we got a lot to talk about. And I'm going to try my best to not make this video like an hour long or anything like that. But first and foremost, thanks for checking out the video. Thanks for, if you're still subscribed on whatever platform you're watching this on, I appreciate that very much. But the first thing I want to bring up, of course, is what you see on your screen. And it's just, when people read too much into a picture rather than understand what the actual situation is. It's a little irritating. And I know this is going to go outside the realm of, or this is going to be outside the typical message you hear on on this channel, but you kind of have to once in a while make a, how can I say this, as close to a bipartisan statement as you possibly can. And this is, of course, the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. I know some people who were down there. They got stuck, or not got stuck, but got hammered by this terrible storm. So my heart goes out to everybody that has suffered through this. So I saw this on a popular basket weaving message board, if you catch my drift. I'm drinking coffee while I'm making this, so you're gonna have to bear with me. I saw this post, and someone had put the ever famous tagline, if only you knew how bad things really are, or were, or whatever, but how bad things really are. And this picture depicts President Joe Biden, presumably after he gave his speech to the victims there, and it has Governor DeSantis doing the Trump walk that became a famous meme during the 2020 election, of Trump walking with his head down, tie undone, and a hat in his hand, back to his motorcade, or to go back to the airport or something. And of course everybody misconstrued that. They ran with it like Trump leaves dejected from underwhelming rally or something like that. And honestly, what it really was just him walking after a long rally and not knowing, because you could clearly see that it was dark out because of the brightness of the flash of the camera. So he had no idea there was somebody there about to take his picture. But anyway, we got the same deal here. And I immediately was all like, oh, yes, of course. It's just absolutely terrible that people can put aside politics for, I don't know, a fraction of a second in the midst of a national disaster in Florida. Natural disaster, I should say. Not national, but natural disaster in Florida. God forbid, right? So I typically don't like to give any kind of recognition to the other side just because of how insane, delusional, self-destructive, and just complete and utter incompetence. But when I see things taken so far out of context, it really makes me believe that this basket weaving site is filled with literal low IQ people. But I know 99% of the time it's literally just shit posting and posting something to just be a shill, or just to generate a response, which is typically what that website is for. But I felt the need to comment on it anyway, because we already know that this is going to have the same type of impact that Trump picture had. So honestly, this is how I see it. President Biden is having a conversation with, looks like, a husband and wife. I'll take the time out to address the elephant in the room. Why must he constantly do this? I mean, at least the woman is closer to his age. And this guy doesn't seem to mind it. But anyway, I will, and I can't assume what their political beliefs are, but I can say this. In the midst of a natural disaster where people have lost everything, their homes, some people have lost their cars and their homes, some people have just literally lost everything, they don't have anything left, and there's so many questions, there's so many worries, there's so much anxiety about the future. They don't know where they're going to get the money to replace all this stuff. They don't know where they're going to live. They don't know where they're going to go. They don't know what's going to happen. And there's so much uncertainty immediately following something like this. Because the first thing you realize is, okay, I'm alive, but everything else is gone. And for the first time, it feels like, and it seems like for a lot of these people, for the first time in their lives, they're truly at ground. They're square zero. They're square nothing. They don't have anything, and they don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not going to give much credit to the Biden administration, because this was a situation where they absolutely had to do something. They had to make a statement. They had to communicate with DeSantis. They had to go to Florida, and they had to give a speech, and they had to commit to helping these people. It was a no other answer, no other alternative situation. They had to do it because they're already in the shitter when it comes to popularity in this country. So if there was even a hint of fuckery on their end when it came to assisting the people of Florida, that was going to be, if all the nails weren't nailed into the coffin, that was going to be the big giant one that sealed their fate forever. So they go down there, and of course Joe Biden opens his big fat stupid mouth and has to say something about climate change, of course, because that's exactly what the people in Florida wanted to hear about, Mr. Biden, Mr. President, if that's what we want to call you, if you really are that. But putting all that aside, I'm sure the people who are there hearing the president say that I didn't listen to the speech, so I'm kind of just guessing, because all presidential speeches like this sound the same. When they hear the president say, "We stand with you. We're going to work with your governor to provide everything that he needs to help you all rebuild and get your lives back and get you back on track and get you back to work and get you a place to stay and food and supplies and medical attention and all that stuff." And then afterwards mingles with the crowd that was there. And I won't speak for everybody, but I feel like I have enough confidence to safely assume that if you were in that crowd and you just lost everything, and the president, let's just assume that these people didn't vote for Biden. Let's just go with that. I mean, it's irrelevant, but I will say that just to insert my own consciousness into this situation. And you didn't vote for this guy. You don't even like him. In fact, you could hate him. But in that moment, when you've lost everything and you have nothing, and as messed up and corrupt as the federal government is on all levels, really, and you have somebody like Joe Biden come down there and probably fumble through a speech saying that he's going to help give whatever you need to get back on track, all that stuff, then mingles and says, "Look, we're gonna, very sorry that you lost everything. We're gonna get you, we're gonna get you back on track, Jack. Like, we're gonna get you taken care of. We're gonna make sure your family's taken care of. We're gonna make sure you have a place to stay. We're gonna make sure you have food. We're gonna make sure you get some whatever medical attention you need." I can't imagine that the majority of people would sit there and go, "F you, you mother effer. Get out of my face, you piece of shit." Like, you're going to sit there and you're going to begrudgingly say, "Thank you, Mr. President, I appreciate that." Now, whether they follow through is a whole different story. But when you're there in the moment, you're putting your faith into this situation, however small that faith may be, I don't know, that you're actually going to get the help that you need. And I can say for myself that, at that situation, I don't care what political agenda you have. Right now, all I care about is having my family taken care of. So is that what you're going to do for me? You're going to do that for me. You're going to come in and you're going to help my governor get me taken care of? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. President. It's like when you have a boss that you don't really like, but you have to respect his position, and then they do something nice for you. They help you out, or if you're in a tough spot, or you have an emergency, and you're not sure if you're going to be able to have the time to take from work to do that or whatever, and they come around and they actually surprise you and they say, "Okay, yeah, no, that's totally fine. Whatever you need, we're here to help." And you go, oh, well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. That's exactly what this situation is. You can hate this guy. You really can. You can hate him. I don't care if you hate him. I don't like him. I don't like him one bit. But if something like this happened to me, and he was to come to my state and look me in the eye and say, we're going to make sure that you and your family and everyone else in your community is taken care of, I would say, I'm going to hold you to that, Mr. President. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm going to hold you to it. That's all you can really do at that point. Because we already know that DeSantis has done everything right. From what I can tell, I mean, I've listened to a lot of different sources on the ground in Florida. It's a mess. It's a terrible situation. But I've heard that the governor has done a great job. And that, there were tens of thousands of line workers ready to go to restore power. That's always the number one thing you want to do in these situations, is get power back on as quickly as possible. So that's one of the things I wanted to address. And, you can hate comment me all you want. That's fine. I stand by my statement, So that's screenshot number one. All right, the next one is this one, which I found quite horrifying. All right, so the U.S. Department of Agriculture is now asking people to register their vegetable gardens for a national database. Oh my God. See, this is what happens, people, when the federal government gets way too big. This is what happens when the government has way too much power, is way too large, and has way too much freedom to do whatever they want. This is the antithesis of a constitutional republic. Everything that the founding fathers did not want is happening right now. I can't understate how absolutely horrifying this is, because this, in my opinion, is related to the lawsuit. Tucker Carlson has brought it up multiple times about the Amish farmer. I think his first name is Amos. I'm not 100% sure. Who was selling his own meat the way that he, butchers it and prepares it. Eggs, milk, all that stuff to the community there, was selling it to hundreds of people, and people were going to him because they did not want the stuff that's in the grocery stores, the stuff that is regulated by the Department of Agriculture and the U.S. FDA, Food and Drug Association, like all of that stuff. They could go to him because they feel like that's where they're going to get the purest form of food. And because of that, because the federal government doesn't like anything to do with citizens taking matters into their own hands and doing things to get away from the government and government regulation. I mean, just look at Ruby Ridge. So, of course, they take that poor Amish farmer to court. They shut down his farm. They tell him that he has to pay, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines, and lose his entire farm and all of that stuff, unless he is willing to, and I don't want to say abide by or follow federal regulation. I want to say submit, kneel. He must kneel before the almighty federal government if he really wants to continue making money off of his farm and selling his own stuff to the people in his community. And it's so sickening to see. And if that case, this is like one of those, like, of course, it's a case that nobody knows about unless you watch Tucker Carlson. So I'd say a couple million people may have heard it. But this is one of those cases that is so vital to constitutional freedom that if this goes the way of the government, in favor of the government, you can kiss our rights goodbye. We have no rights at that point. Like, we have nothing. So, and this is just another step in that direction. So if you actually read down here, in a move that has many folks scratching their heads, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has renewed its push for the People's Garden Initiative, which now includes registering vegetable gardens nationwide. According to the USDA, the move is to foster a, quote, more diverse and resilient local food system to empower communities to address issues like nutrition access and climate change. Get the F out of here. I am so sick of this. I'm so sick of this. All right. I think oh my God, it makes my head hurt. I think that if anybody wants to talk about climate change on a serious matter, then required reading has to be, at the very least, the cost of climate change. I think that's what it's called. You'll have to excuse me while I look it up, because I want to get this right. Oh, it's not the... Bjorn Lomborg, false alarm. That's the how climate change panic costs us trillions and hurts the poor. Yeah, Bjorn Lomborg, or Barg, however you pronounce it, is a Danish author. But yeah, False Alarm is the book. That needs to be required reading at the very least if you're going to have a serious conversation about climate change, because this is just stupid. And this is honestly trying to shroud what their real agenda is around something that a fraction of our population really cares about. But those who have been following the USDA closely for years know that they couldn't care less about your health and nutrition. Yeah, just look at some of the nutrition labels and the stuff that's in your food in the supermarket, and you'll see exactly how much they really care. Have you looked at breakfast cereals? You know? I mean, if the USDA really cared about your nutrition, that lane would be empty. That aisle would be empty. Yeah, to register your garden with the USDA, one must meet several easily obtainable standards. Like, they make it sound like people want to register their garden. It's like, yeah, no thanks. The whole reason that you have your own vegetable garden is to get as far away from the federal government as possible. So this is something that's worth keeping an eye on. As well as that court case about the Amish farmer. So that's screenshot number 2. All right, moving along here. So this one's a real gem. Kathy Hochul, New York's first unelected governor. I think first, I don't know the history of governorship and who's stepped down and when lieutenant governors have taken over, but we'll say first unelected woman governor, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know anything about New York politics, but New York Governor Kathy Hochul pleads for federal solution to migrant crisis. Well, gee, Kathy, I thought you were a sanctuary state. Oh, right, you're a sanctuary state as long as the federal government handles all your problems for you. As you all know, states like Texas, Florida, have been constantly, Arizona, busing these migrants to various Democratic states, and, well, cities, really, like Chicago, New York City, Washington, D.C., etc. And, of course, the famous one that got everybody's attention, Martha's Vineyard, which those people kicked those people out in less than 24 hours. But this right here pretty much encompasses the hypocrisy when it comes to immigration on the left. You have mayors and governors championing how they're sanctuary cities and states, and they're not going to let the evil orange man deport you back to your country, Oh, I forgot the meme. I have a meme. Um, I can't believe I forgot it. I kind of got all these together in a hurry because I had some rare time this morning because I'm working from home. Um, but they're all for all that stuff until they overwhelm their state and city, and then they start feeling the effects of what it's like to be a real border town and border state. The meme is a, let's just say, a diverse Wojak looking with the map picture of Texas, and says, like, I come. I come to your country or something like that, and it shows some other nerd Wojak with a big grin saying, "Welcome, weary traveler," and then he points upward in the next frame to New York State and says, "I go here," and the nerd Wojak gets angry and goes, "No, you can't do that. You're overwhelming our system." And yeah, that was pretty much encompasses basically how this whole thing has played out so far. Now, when it comes to the whole busing and transporting these migrants to blue cities and stuff, it was cute for about a day, and it was a cool little gotcha, but honestly, all that these governors are doing they're just spreading the problem out even further into the country. And honestly, I take the Kari Lake stance on this. And boy, she better stick to her guns. Not if, when she wins the governorship in Arizona. And she's on record saying, it's cute that they want to send all these migrants to Democrat states, but me personally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on a bus and send them back across the border. And I said, yes. That's the appropriate way to handle things. And all these people yammering on about, like, oh, you can't do that, the federal government's going to come after you, blah, blah, blah. You know what I would say if I was a government? Let them try. I was like, go ahead. Let me see. Let me see you come in here and try and do that. We're gonna have the mid 1800s all over again if that happens, because all of that's because right then you're back to infringing on state rights. So, and the states have the right to protect themselves from foreign invaders, and that's exactly what this is. And if the federal government were to do something like that, and go after, let's say, Kari Lake for doing what she said she was going to do, I think you would have legal precedent at that point to file articles of impeachment to the Biden administration, well, to Biden, really, and on grounds of him violating his oath to the Constitution and protecting sovereign American territory. I think and your proof is that once a state started to take matters into their own hands, Joe Biden and the federal government tried to stop them, and that would be a clear example of a violation to your oath of the Constitution. So that would be the perfect play right there, in my opinion. If I'm missing something, please let me know in the comment section. I already know. It's already talked about that Joe Biden's violated his oath to the Constitution on several different pages, But but I feel like the legal precedent would be there, clear cut, especially after the midterms, if that were to happen. And I think you would get. I think it would be an overwhelming, resounding yes to impeachment at that point. So that's my thought on that part. That's screenshot number 3. All right, moving along here. This is a two-parter. This one just really grinded me, man. This one really made me mad. Okay, so we got Dana Lash, or I guess that's how you pronounce it. I don't know, Lash. I don't think it's Lash. It's like Loesch or something. I don't care if Herschel Walker paid to abort endangered baby eagles. I want control of the Senate. And then this real winner, if you catch my drift, Elizabeth Vargas, the with the redundant blue check mark there, because they just give anybody, those who have a pulse and vote blue no matter who, the quiet part out loud. Well, gee, this sounds familiar, especially coming from your side of the aisle, Elizabeth Vargas. So I have to admit, I had to pause the recording there. I actually have to go. I took my father to Kaiser Permanente. He had to have a cataract surgery, and they told me it would be closer to noon when he'd be ready to go, and I just got a call from the doctor saying that he's ready to go in about 20 minutes. So I got to wrap this up. So basically, the hypocrisy here is, I don't care if Herschel Walker paid. Don't get me wrong. I think this is kind of foot in the mouth. I'd say a bad analogy. I would just say a bad analogy. But I do have a comparison. I'll get to that in just a second. So I don't care. I want control of the Senate. This is basically the same tactic that everybody plays on the left. All the corruption with Joe Biden, how ridiculous and I'd say insane Kamala Harris is, Pelosi, Schumer, all of those people. Well, then you also have this one, which is not from too long ago. Ham Saris, ham sandwich. I'm just going to leave it there. You could read it. Okay, for those of you who listen and don't read, Hunter Biden could have literally had the corpses of children in his basement, and I would not have cared. That's a real quote, okay? So it's okay when they say it, but it's terrible when we say it. The last thing I'm going to bring up, I had a meme, but I don't have time to share that. Oh, shoot. Okay, well, the last thing I was going to bring up was the Nord Stream pipeline. Yes, the West is involved. No, Putin did not blow up his own multi-billion-dollar pipeline, which was making them money by selling natural gas to Europe. And anybody who says otherwise is trying to trick you. Anyway, I got to go pick up my father. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sorry for the jumbled mess of a video, but I wanted to get something out there. I'm glad I covered most of the things, if not all, that I wanted to get into. Take care. Hang in there, and I will do my best to get another video out as soon as possible. Have a good one.